Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming in and attending my presentation today. I am Dr. Terry Britt, and I am an assistant professor in communication at the University of Texas at Tyler. I primarily teach both media production and media and communication theory and research methods courses. But my actual research work is a little different than what you might expect from a communication professor. I dare say that maybe this presentation will be a little different than what you're accustomed to at computer festivals like this, but I hope, and I think it will be very entertaining and enlightening for everyone here. Okay, so to start off with just a little bit about me. So I was born and raised in Sweetwater, Tennessee. If you don't know where that is, split Knoxville and Chattanooga, and you're pretty much there. And I had a rather unusual adolescence in that one of the local weekly newspapers hired me as a sports writer just after the end of my freshman year of high school. So my professional journalism experience began at age 14, and I lasted nearly 30 years with one or two short interruptions, but that was my trade until I made this crazy decision because I still didn't have a bachelor's degree after all that time. I started college in 1983 at what was Memphis State University at that time, but various and sundry personal and financial problems kind of wrecked that traditional 4-year plan for me. So instead, I ended up with the 30-year bachelor's degree plan and completed a BA in English at the University of Texas at Tyler. Yes, the same one. I am now full circled as a faculty member. From there, I went on to, much to my surprise, the University of Texas at Austin in a special track in the journalism school called Media Research and Theory. They take 2 people per year in that program out of all the applications for from grad students or wannabe grad students. Got that knocked out in 2 years, and from there on to the University of Missouri School of Journalism. Now, if you're not too familiar with that program and that school, it happens to be the world's oldest and largest college journalism program. It started in 1908, a bit back ago. And we, at Mizzou, we enroll right around 2,500 students a year across undergraduate, master's, and doctoral. I ended up being only the second ever doctoral teaching fellow in that program's history, and still very proud of that, to say the least. But I got my dissertation finished in 2018, and you already know I ended up from where I started, but in a good way. Okay, so like many of you, I grew up during the dawn of the personal computing era, and I was all into it. That was almost salvation for me at the time. But kind of jumping forward to what I'm going to be talking about here is this idea of life experience and how those experiences of all kinds inform our brain as to the time, space, and creating both episodic and semantic memories, which I'll explain that in just a moment. Personal computing is no different from anything else that you experience in life. It is connected to a certain period of experienced time. Could be hours, could be days, could be years, decades, eras, as it pertains to personal computing, and also physical space. In other words, the memories connected to the places at which you interacted with a personal computer: home, work, school, maybe a friend's house, or a user group meeting, okay? And like so many other life experiences, personal computing has some commonalities. So that's another way of saying, experiences that are very similar, maybe not exactly alike, but very similar among all of us. And then there's also exclusives. So memories that are unique to you as an individual regarding personal computing. Okay, so I can't really go on with the rest of it without just giving all of you a little primer where it concerns memory research that I do. So in early psychology research concerning human memory, a lot of that was conducted under the assumption that memory is memory is memory is memory. Okay, it's all this big ball of information that exists somewhere in your brain, and it's one kit and caboodle. Okay, that all changed when a scholar, professor named Endel Tulving, who sadly passed not too long ago, but he started doing research and discovering that not all memory is the same kind of memory. And so he did a lot of work, and it kind of culminated in a book that he co-edited in 1972 called Organization of Memory. And that is where he sprang upon the research public that there are different types of memory. There's like a hierarchy, a taxonomy of types of memory. But the big two concepts were semantic memory, which is simply the facts, figures, dates, times, names, the raw information, basically. And then there's episodic memory, and he argued that's what makes humans unique from all of the other life forms. We have the ability to sort of jump back in time to an experience that we had, whatever that might be, and sort of relive that in articulating that memory. And he called that episodic memory. He also later came up with a couple of rather, far out sounding concepts, but they're valid concepts, and I can tell you, you do these so many times per day, every day of your life, but most of the time you are completely unconscious that you're doing it. Okay, because it just becomes part of our normal day of thoughts that go through our head. But he termed these concepts past mental time travel. Told you it was far out. Past mental time travel and future mental time travel. And those are both kind of a part of a subset within episodic memory. So, something in the past that you did, this is how you sort of jump back into that time, at least mentally, and sort of re-experience it. But it also works in the other direction, okay? How many of you, raise your hand, how many of you were thinking about what you wanted to see, people you wanted to talk to, things you might want to buy? Practically everybody. Because for one thing, this has been on the calendar for a while now. So you have that anticipatory element of, yes, VCF Southwest is coming in June. And it's nothing unusual to then sort of project a mental version of you into that future point in time. Now, just a quick note. One of the problems with future mental time travel, of course, is that it's very, very rare that your future mental time travel experience actually ends up exactly the way you thought it would be, right? Something goes wrong, God forbid you get a flat tire coming up here, or traffic's just more nutsier than usual here in Dallas. But it's rarely perfect in that sense. But that's okay. We still do it because we have a lot of usually positive emotions about something yet to occur, and so we kind of have fun, jumping ahead and thinking about what we're going to do, who we're going to talk to, who we might see, what we haven't seen in a while, things like that. Now, last point, semantic and episodic memory, because they both reside in parts of your brain, they get together sometimes and create something called autobiographical memory, which is what I study and research. And that's essentially what autobiographical memory is. It's the combination of semantic and episodic with a little dash of emotional affect and personal perspective. Okay. But it's largely all that semantic and episodic memory content that you have and can recall. Okay, so that just kind of sets the foundation for what I wanted to carry on with here. And it is actually an interactive bit that I've prepared for everyone. I thought this would be, bring it home to you more than me just standing up here talking about all of it. So what I did was scour the internet and grab a few visual images that I'm going to show you one at a time, and they're all related to personal computing and personal computing media from the 1970s, 1980s. Now, if you want to do some really vintage computing, if you like. But if you prefer, you can use a device that you have with you, smartphone, or maybe just maybe your working memory is pretty good, and you just know what you're going to come up with as answers. So I'm going to show these one at a time. And give everyone a couple of minutes to sort of formulate a response. And then at the end, I want to, just kind of pick some of you in the audience randomly to share your responses, your answers. Okay? Very simple. Any questions before we get underway, though? Okay. If not. All right. So here is the first item for you to engage your autobiographical memory. Before I move on to the second image, let me just jump in with this. You may not have a response to all 5 images that I'm going to show, and that's fine. We didn't all go to a particular place, back in the 80s, let's say, and you may not recognize some of the images, and that's okay too. So just don't put yourself in to any kind of pressure cooker to come up with something. All right. If everyone's ready, we'll go on to the second one. Okay, if no objections, we'll move on to item number 3. I'm seeing a few smiles all around on this one. Okay, item number 4. Had a feeling this one might be a hit. And finally, number 5. If any of you were in here for the previous session, you might know this one. Okay, so before we go on to the communal sharing, I want to just mention a couple of things regarding my research work. This is essentially what I work with at UT Tyler and previously at my other institutions. It's memory recall stimulus from media cues. Media as sort of a stick to poke the brain with. Media archives in particular. Autobiographical memory can be stimulated and subsequently recalled and articulated by engaging with some kind of media content connected to that time and space of your original experience. And so this is what I work with in research, not just visual images, but videos, audio archives, newspaper and book and magazine archives, things all across the board. Yes, even social media. Yes?
So I guess I'm wondering, what is the specific significance of these types of images to, as you said, poke the brain? Because I mean, the brain uses associative memory, and that's a phenomenon that's pretty universal. It works across all kinds of images. And I'm just wondering, what is the particular significance and the research questions associated with this particular type of imagery triggering recall that would be any different to any other kind of associative input?
Well, for my research work, it ties into accessibility. So the broader and longer in terms of time access that we now have through digitization of media archives. So for instance, when back in the 60s and 70s, you typically did not have access to shows or movies unless you went to the theater or you were home, at the time that a particular show was being broadcast. And then, of course, the home recording industry came into being in the mid 70s and quickly gained traction. And then, now we have the whole concept of, I can't watch the news this evening because I'm working late, but I'm going to set my VCR, if you're skilled enough, to tape the news, and I'll watch it when I get home from work. And over time, in not all cases, obviously, but in many cases, those recordings, physical media such as pictures, records, vinyl records, things like that have remained, and in some cases, digitized by enthusiasts or just individuals, also by collectives like museums and physical archives. So, is there anything else I can clarify? Okay. All right. Thank you for the question. So, media archives are very central to the research work that I do. No, it's not a perfect process. The availability is not universal. There's, still a lot of content that hasn't been digitized and loaded onto YouTube or a fan website or social media in some cases. Okay, so now we have some fun. I'm going to shift back to the first of these images. Raise your hand. How many of you had? That's okay. How many of you had a specific autobiographical memory associated with good old EB, Electronics Boutique? Yeah, several of you. Okay. Let me. Yeah, since your phone rang, you get to go first.
So I will tell you that for me, it was kind of interesting when this came up because I wasn't a frequent shopper to Electronic Boutique, but I did go in there one time.
Okay.
But I drove past it many times going to visit friends or to go to the bookstore. Mm-hmm. And so to me, this brings back memories of when I was going to visit my friends, and I would always see the Electronic Boutique on my way to their houses. And so it brings back memories of spending time with them by just seeing the logo and the pictures of the Electronic Boutique.
Excellent example.
Mine is almost the same as that.
Okay.
I went in the store maybe 2 or 3 times, but it was because I had a friend in Garmin who went to County Small all the time where the store was, and I went with him. So mine is, the memory is more about my friend and me at the mall than the store itself.
Exactly. Someone else who had, yeah, go ahead.
I was just general rides, kind of playing off of that, reminds me of mall trips and
Mm-hmm.
basically mom and dad going off to boring stores that little kid knew you didn't care about. You know, at a Radio Shack or
Yeah.
electronics boutique.
Yeah.
Go in there and basically salivate over all the games or the voodoo graphics cards that I couldn't afford or whatever. You know.
Exactly. Anyone else?
So no one actually shopped it like
Yeah. Yeah, it took some time to build up to a program. Yeah. Gentleman standing up. Yeah.
I did it was the only time that I did it, that I bought my first boombox radio. before
Okay.
I went to college.
Uh-huh.
The only time that I remember that was in that store.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I have to give you a little bit of full disclosure because obviously there were a lot of different outlets for shopping for personal computer software and computers and accessories. But I couldn't do this and not have EB up there because, in fact, I was the electronics boutique manager at the then new Parks at Arlington Mall. 1988, 1989. If you remember at the onset, I said, took a little break from journalism. This was one of the breaks. Upstairs next to Dillard's we were, you know. And that was my life for most of those 2 years, 1988, 1999. 89, I meant to say. Sorry. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, obviously, this one's a wee bit older, and it's obviously a magazine ad. I will tell you specifically, it is from 1977. Yes. Which means I was going through the hell known as junior high school at the time. Go ahead.
Oh, so now, not this ad in particular, but in 1984, my parents, we got an Apple IIe for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And as soon as the stores opened again, my dad took back the green screen and we got the color monitor.
Ah.
And actually, I think it was all his idea because
Mm-hmm.
my mom was like, "This costs so much," and he said, "Oh, it's the kids need to know computing. It's gonna be good for their futures."
Mhm.
He wasn't wrong,
Yeah.
and he was always buying. I mean, he filled every slot
Mhm.
with the card, and it's my mom was a piano teacher,
Mm-hmm.
so when the students they would come early or stay half an hour late, and they would go in and had educational music software, music theory software,
Yep.
and play on it because the computer was in the kitchen,
Uh-huh.
just off the kitchen, because it was the family computer, and her students got to all do that. I mean, it just, I don't know, it's just hours and hours.
Mhm.
I wrote, basic programs on it,
Mm-hmm.
video games, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it was so awesome. We got a computer for Christmas.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And in school, those only had green screens.
Yeah.
Floppy, but,
Yeah.
my dad at Woolfield money, he was piling in every card, every accessory. And
Yeah.
It was just set me down my path.
Let me ask everyone this. Did you pick up all the time and space references in his memory, in his response? Christmas. Next to the kitchen. Music software. And many others, right? So, again, it's it's the actual physical equipment, the software, and using it, but there's so many more accompanying autobiographical memories connected to the back then. Real quick question: did any of you happen to attend a school that got into the Apple will give one free Apple II computer to your school? Just one other person?
I don't know if that's. We had that
Yeah.
in our school.
Yeah. So that initiative started in California, but it soon spread nationwide. I think this ad specifically talks about a school district in Minnesota. But my senior year of high school, we got our one and only free Apple II computer. It was kept in the business classroom, and it was just it's so funny to think about that now. The idea that a computer at school is a complete novelty. But it really was back in the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was in high school, graduated in '79. So
Mm-hmm.
in my high school, looking at this advertisement reminds me that they were so rare that in our high school, we didn't have Apple, but we had a Radio Shack Model 1 computer.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it was specifically in the math department, and only the students that were able to be in the higher level classes, like the calculus classes, got to use it, right? And so this kind of brings back memories about how separated we were from technology
Yeah.
in those days. It was unless you were very elite, like for me, the first Apple II that I even got access to was in college, right? For certain classes,
Yeah.
they had them available. And then when I later went to work, we had a computer club at the company where we owned the Apple and built them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting that this whole paradigm brings me to that moment in high school and my first job
Yeah.
using the technology. And that I worked on the computer and built one, but at that time I didn't know how to use an Apple
Right.
computer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was kind of a strange environment.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Same thing, 79,
Yeah.
and got a Radio Shack in the science department.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only one in school. Same thing.
See, for me, it's slightly different. I come from New York City, graduated in '84. We had a computer lab of Commodore PETs with cassette drives and 4040 floppies.
Wow.
And Commodore did the same deal. In the olden days, if you bought 10 computers, you got a teacher's pet for free. Okay. And the beginning classes were taught on Commodore PETs. Across the hall, so we had 20 in that room. Across the hall, we had 20 Apple IIs, 10 of which were Apple, 10 of which were the Black Bell and Howell. And they were only used for teaching UCSD Pascal and UCSD Fortran. Because we were only across the street from the college, but the college would not let us run punch card batch jobs in other languages through their computer because they believed that if it wasn't PL1, the computer would explode. So by the time I graduated high school, we were surrounded Now granted, math department, 2 classrooms only, the only 2 rooms in the building that were air conditioned. But by 84, we had 40 for our use.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school in '95, so back in my middle school year, the year before me was teaching typing on typewriters. And I was the
I
very
did
first
that.
year they had in all the brand new Apple II pluses or whatever year for teaching typing. And I'm sure they did some other stuff, but it was,
Yeah.
we're using computers just to teach
Keyboarding. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
typing and other stuff, but maybe it's Beacon or
Yeah.
something.
Let me move on to no. You're good. You're good. Now, this image actually was multi. What's the word? Multi-purpose, I guess, because you see, of course, there's a Commodore 64. There's a 1541 disk drive, but there's also what's got to be a real antique these days.
War games.
All right. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, did you? Yeah, go ahead.
So on the 1541 hard drive, I had a lot of Commodore 64 in 1983, and you can't do much if you don't have storage.
Yeah.
And, so this was in Austin in 1983, and so I'm going around looking for a 1541 hard drive. You can't find them anywhere. And I finally go to Foley's, which became Macy's.
Yeah.
It was Foley's back
Yeah.
in the day. And that back when Foley's and Dillard sold computer stuff. And they had one, and it was list price, so it was expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
$260.
Yeah.
And I didn't have $260. I actually paid for it all the time. Kind of, you can have it now. It's not labeled. They're not much labeled.
Right.
You can have it now, but you have to pay to kind of install it.
Right.
But, anyway, I remember going down to Foley's and being so excited. I found the only one in Austin.
Oh, I can imagine. Man, your adrenaline just must have been through the roof that day. Yeah. All right. Anybody else, real quick? Go ahead.
I wasn't in the Commodore, but what reminded me about, I mean, today we take the internet for granted, but the extreme patience required to dial into a BBS when you.
Oh Lord, yes.
Because I had a K-Pro 2 and a modem, but you know, just like sometimes you had busy signal for Apple just trying to get on a BBS.
Oh, and of course, let's don't forget getting knocked offline because somebody picked up the phone in the other room. Yeah.
For long distance calls.
Yeah. All right. Be honest. How many of you immediately recognized what this was from? Okay. All right. Which tells me there's quite a few sports fans in here because the one and only time this ad ran was the Super Bowl in January 1984. Any autobiographical memory to share about this commercial specifically or the advent of the Macintosh? Go ahead.
This triggered a memory, not specifically because of the commercial, but I worked for a mini supercomputer company at the time, and they had set up a Mac in the lobby, and we would, you know, people would come by and get to use it. I remember going over there to look at the computer, and I watched another person who was playing with the paint.
Yeah.
Mac Paint
Uh-huh.
program, and they drew like a picture of 2 birds, and then they took one and copied it and put it over the other bird, and when you moved it back and forth, it looked like the bird was flapping. I remember sitting there using the Mac trying to replicate what
Yeah.
it was, because this was like the very first computer out there that used the mouse, and you could manipulate the screen directly like that. At least in the environment that I was in, right? There were other computers, but this was the one that brought that memory back.
Anybody else? I actually use the full commercial. I use the full commercial in a lot of my media and society and media theory courses that I teach because of its, kind of historical significance and impact, particularly as it pertains to personal computing at the time. But also, this is the commercial that most people agree really gave birth to the Super Bowl commercial. And also the network carrying the Super Bowl that year suddenly realizing we can make a motherload of money with these commercial slots. Last but not least, Compute's Gazette. Did any of you subscribe, or did any of you buy when it hit the newsstand? Back when newsstands existed. Bookstores, maybe. Okay, all right. Anything specific, or?
I guess, again, similar to the electronics boutique, I remember this magazine, and I remember doing type-in programs. It was because I was with my friend Mike, and one of us would read the listing while the other one was typing, because it was too much to get your eyes to go back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And remember which line you're on and whatever. So, yes, I remember the magazine well, but more so the time spent with my buddy Mike in his house, typing in those programs.
Yeah, I did that once with a friend of mine in the dorm I was in at Memphis State. We pulled an all-nighter doing type-in programs, and then got a little bit of sleep and woke up and, proceeded to debug the alpha state sleep errors that I had produced. Anyway, this was the 1980s for me. So this particular issue has a huge amount of significance for me because if you look in the lower left corner there, one of the type-in programs was something called SpeedScript word processor for VIC-20 and Commodore 64. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, this was the type-in program that finally got me off a Smith Corona manual typewriter. Thank you. My very first word processor. Okay. So to wrap up, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about the lab that I was honored to open up at UT Tyler a few years ago, and some of the work we do in there. If you've never heard of media psychophysiology and neuroscience, don't feel bad. It's still a mystery to a lot of people, but it is growing, and more universities are, in their.
Guess your title.
It is. I mean, it is a mouthful, but that's what it is. And my mentor in this field is a great guy by the name of Dr. Paul Bowles, who co-authored a book on media psychophysiology using physiological measures to glean how the body is reacting, how the brain is processing, and in some cases what the emotional response is to various media. And so that's really what it's all about. I have a system in place there, and kits that allow me to do things like ECG, EEG, brainwaves, electroencephalography, facial myography, that is muscle movements among the face muscles that indicate emotional responses. I also know how to work with fMRI, but I don't have one of those in the lab. We don't have space for that yet, or the money for that matter. But I was lucky enough to get in on a fMRI seminar at Missouri, and that was awesome. And then just to reiterate, my particular area of research interest is human memory and its connections with news and entertainment media archives from various times past. I also delve a little bit into media preservation issues. It's kind of part and parcel with it. And so here is the system that I was telling you about. It is from a company in Santa Barbara, California called BioPack. They make and sell, distribute, and support these systems. The electrodes that are attached to participants when I'm doing that kind of study are connected to leads that run through to, if you see on the right, something that kind of vaguely looks like a router, but that's actually connectors for the electrode sets. And then this unit basically amplifies and translates the teeny tiny electrical signals that are being given off by neural activity, and runs it through some proprietary software that then presents it in waves and graphs depending on what you're doing. And you can do all kinds of neat things like make markers where the media the interest points of whatever media you're working with the participant. Also, I have a package called Noldus Face Reader, and this basically does facial myography, but in a no-touch system. It uses a video camera mounted to the participant's computer, and you have them engage with a piece of media content on the screen, and it basically auto maps the facial muscles of that participant, and then feeds them into the program and analyzes emotional points, or levels, happiness, confusion, anger. There's so many there that you can work with. Okay, so just real quick, there's my contact info. So I have a university email, and then the lab has its own email. So that's up there. And if you're interested in knowing more about this, or if you would like to participate in a future study that I'm conducting, and those do include studies that you don't have to drive to Tyler. I would not throw that on you. I also work with interviews and interview research and survey questionnaire research connected to media and human memory. So those are opportunities for you to get involved in as well. I'll wrap up with any other general questions for me from what you've seen today.
Did you work there for the discount?
Did I
Electronics booth.
it couldn't have been that because it wasn't much of a discount, to be honest with you. No, I actually started at the store in Memphis as a part-time, well, actually a seasonal Christmas sales associate, and just, I really liked it, and I liked the people I worked with, and, faster than I could really think about it, I ended up getting promoted manager. I initially opened the store in San Antonio at the Riverwalk Mall, or I think it's called River Center Mall. And then I moved up to Arlington and was there for almost a couple of years. But I'm a certified geek, and I just, for me it was fun. I loved helping people pick, software, systems, accessories, whatever, and talking with them about it. Probably the social aspect more than anything else. But eventually I figured out I really suck at retail. And if I'm going to be broke all the time, I might as well be a broke journalist, because we all are. But, so anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
What are some applications for the emotional data that you collected these tools?
One in particular I'm fond of is, are you lying? So we will verbalize, the way we feel about X, but this gives me the opportunity to see, okay, but is your physiological and neural responses lining up with what you said, the way you felt about X? So, but alongside that, many times something from the mediated past is important to us emotionally. It strikes a chord. It's significant in some way. Great, easy example. That song that suddenly comes on the radio and you haven't heard it in, many, many years possibly, and you're instantly transported to that girl you had a first date with, or guy you had a first date with back in high school, and, that was on maybe in the top 40 or something. I find it fascinating with the age of streaming now, all the old movies and TV series that you can find in part or in whole, and again, kind of engaging with that past mental time travel that Tolving wrote about, jumping back to, oh my gosh, that, this show watched religiously during, such and such year, or time of my life. So, media is not detached at all. We engage with media oftentimes for very personal or emotional purposes. Yeah.
Do you find in your studies also that although media or music or one of these things can trigger memories, that sometimes those memories are clouded, that they can't be recalled completely? And what is it that causes that, or what is the assumption that's going on in that scenario?
Yeah, it's caused because human memory is and always will be an imperfect system. There's a scholar by the name of Daniel Schechter, who wrote a book called The 7 Sins of Memory. And it was an integral part of my dissertation at Missouri. Things like misremembering, or purposeful or protective forgetting, bad memories, for instance. And also, autobiographical memory isn't like a word for word text or an exact perfect copy picture wise, okay? Because we change over time. Our perspectives change, and our self-evaluation changes. And that a lot of times can color in some way what we remember or what we think we remember from a certain experience. So, simply put, it's never maybe as great or as horrible as you you thought it was at that point in time.
Does the recalling of it help or not?
I think it does. For one thing, it that self-evaluation process that I spoke about, it gives us a sense of who we are in the present time compared and contrasted to that time. And that can be very therapeutic and very beneficial for mental and emotional growth. Okay? All right. Thank you again for your participation and attention. I really had a fun time doing this.